is mine. Respect is a very big issue between players and the referee in any sport. In squash, do you ever introduce yourself to the players at the beginning of a match? I believe they usually spin the racket to see who serves. Do you think it would help the course of play if the ref went on court at the beginning, introduced themselves, players shook hands and a coin tossed? It was just me thinking, as we've said, about different sports, rugby, football, and what I've learned from my, going forward. And then I just think, well, as you rightly said, Jason, you don't really become too familiar. However, I don't play squash, so the fact of being there and on court, two players are all keyed up, they're all ready to go. Do you leave them, or do you think it would help at all if a ref went and said, "I'm your ref, I'm Chris Nee, I'm your ref for today"? Does it help? Just to
personally, I don't think it would. We want to get the matches on. There's such a short amount of time between one match and another, and time is so precious. Now, we're here all day from first thing in the morning, sometimes till late at night, and that would just drag out. And you're saying about respect, something that sprang to mind that we covered earlier on. I have very few players come up and shake hands with me. Maybe that's down to my personality and character. That said, I used to regularly referee at a PSA event in Gibraltar every year. And every Gibraltar player always come up and shook hands. None of the foreign or British players ever would. And I think that's a lack of respect. So other countries, they have it. But most people know they don't care what we do. They don't realise we're giving up our time. But pretty much we don't get paid for this. You might get expenses. And they won't do it themselves.
I from Jason's point of view, all the players know you, Jason, obviously. You won't know the names anyway. So
yeah, but these tournaments we do, they all know us. We've been doing it for too long.
That's what I'm coming to it. 99% of certainly both of us. There's occasionally there may be a player, I don't know, especially a junior coming in a Welsh Open or something like that. And I find their names out before they go on court. They don't know me, but as you say, do they need to know me? If they acknowledge you at the end of the match, that's great as far as I'm concerned. But possibly going back a while, like the Welsh closed, where David would play Alex in the final, year after year after year. I would go down and speak to him in the corridor in St. Mellons because the dope testers were there. So we had to know what was happening to tell people the match starts being delayed by 5 minutes, something like that. And because I knew them anyway, they want an issue, we just say, well, what's happening, guys? So, give a sample of this, blah, 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 whatever. So that was the only time I talked to players. And the other side of it is, like the under 19s, a couple of weeks or whatever, junior tournament, the ball had a bit of a hide-in on the court. So you go down, it might be like a semi-final, and you know it's going to be a long game. You just say, "You happy with the ball, guys?" And they say, "Have we got a new one?" "Yeah, of course, we're on a new one, And that's the only interaction I would have. And I just see that as part of the role.
So you wouldn't enhance anything to go down and... No.
I don't.
That's fine.
What about yourself, James? Again, they all know you now, don't they?
I like the idea of it because you see it at boxing or tennis. There's a spectacle of it at the higher level. But quite often, when we're doing these events, local events, we're just churning out the matches one after another. The kids or the players go straight on court. They look over their shoulder to see who the referee is, and they just carry on warming up. We might formalise it by asking them their names or to confirm their names, but there's no sort of formal introduction.
Can I mention, just 3 things have just sprung to mind. One, because Paul has just mentioned Dave. Now, we've been told we really shouldn't mention names, but David Evans has been the best Welsh player we've ever had, won the British Open. I have so much time and respect for the man. And just so happens I wasn't a referee then, but I was watching an open tournament in Cardiff Squash Rackets, of all things. David was ranked 1. Alex Goff might have been 2, but there was a lot of English players there. I watched Alex Goff win his match. One particular point, the ball went out. Referee didn't see it, and Goffy said he didn't argue. It was his serve, just put the ball out straight away. I thought, good sportsmanship. Anyway, getting back to David. David's on court and he just creates so much time for himself. He'd play a shot and then look at his watch. Another guy'd hit it, play a shot, look at his watch. So when he come off and he didn't know me then, I said, David, no, were you timing the shots? He said, no. He said, I'd had a bet with Alex Goff how soon I could get into the bar. Seriously, you're a professional player. And short time ago, two twins playing here, identical twins. They've just been in a local tournament with an open here. And they came on, and I just couldn't work out which player was which. So I made sure they put on different T-shirts. And even then, with different T-shirts, it was difficult. They both had a tough first game. The first game was probably the toughest. It will go the longest, a lot of perspiration. They went off. I never thought anything of it. They had their 90 seconds, come back on. They changed T-shirts. I had no idea who I was refereeing. And then the third and final one, told me by a Scottish referee. They were refereeing international somewhere. And the one guy came on with a Brazilian T-shirt, and the other guy come on with an Argentinian T-shirt. The guy with the Argentinian T-shirt was a Brazilian, and the Brazilian wearing the other one. Yeah, it's so difficult. We get called out. Well, I get called out like that, but the identical twins who just here a short time ago. So when we come back onto the T-shirts, didn't have a clue.
And if you're on there, a question there, what do you love most about being a referee then, Chris?
No one's ever asked. For me personally, and to be honest, I have questioned whether I'll carry on refereeing. It's helping out. I'm a volunteer. It's helping people like Russell and Dave Evans. That's why I do it. Other people don't do it. I'll do it. I'll give up my time freely. That's it.
Jason, as a professional?
I love this sport. I love squash. I love watching the game. And the fact that I've, along my journey, I've managed to acquire qualifications and become a referee has enabled me to continue my passion of watching squash. And I've had the pleasure of seeing some fantastic games of squash whilst being a referee. So yeah, I love the sport and I love watching squash.
Can I just ask you a question on that? Because in my own personal experience, I can't speak for you two, but when I'm refereeing a match, I'm not engrossed enough to actually see and enjoy the match. I'm so focused on getting things done correctly. I don't enjoy it as much as I do as a spectator.
I can understand that because there are so many things to remember. There are so many things that could go wrong. When I watch the game, I'm actually in a way playing the rally with them. I'm almost working out what shots are available, what are their options, what sort of shot they're going to play. So I get a sense of enjoyment out of it. You're right, you can't let your guard down too much because you might be called into an action at any moment. But I guess that's one of my things that helps me get through it.
And Paul, what are some of the biggest frustrations or challenges you face in the role as a referee?
Possibly some spectators, certainly parents. Some parents in particular can't let the child, the player, get on with it. They've got to be involved with, they're all about being, play it to length. I actually said it a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me, I said, can you not coach between rallies? But at the end of the game, he said, I haven't got a clue what's going on.
Oh, no.
He said, I'm not dad.
Yeah.
I'm just encouraging her to stay in there. I said, well, I couldn't quite hear that. I said, it was quite obvious to me at the end of every rally. It was like, whatever her name was, blah, 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 blah. I couldn't work it out. I thought, well, let's just mention it now rather than wait till he's saying, cross-court or whatever he was going to shout the next. But he found it quite funny, so I thought, well...
Yeah, okay, well, that's not so bad.
Perhaps I was a bit over the top, stamping on it that early, but I didn't want it to go because it was a very tight match. So, sorry, what's the question?
Well, frustrations or challenges that you face as a referee? So parents and people interrupting and
few parents, but I think as that junior goes through the age groups, I'm not saying they respect you more, but they certainly see you in
Hopefully
the events
change.
and think, well, he's given his time up here, so perhaps he's doing his best. Hopefully,
do we think though that players, and I'm thinking of my players that I know, my son, do they realise that the referees don't generally get paid? I don't think they do. I don't think
they do.
I don't think that they get told very much about referees, and perhaps they could.
well,
And
perhaps
should.
they could, but do they need to know that?
Well, just to a degree,
Yeah,
as you know, to
yeah.
say this is your referee, this is respect this, that, and the other.
I think they need to realise that we give up our time, that we volunteered to do this. We don't. If we didn't do it, I remember speaking to Roy Jones about this. So what happens if all the referees said we're not going to do this anymore? We said we'd just get the players to do it. But that's easier said than done. And I'm thinking, you just asked Paul about the frustration. Both Paul and Jason are rather quietly spoken. I would think one of the frustrations they might receive is players can't always hear them. They're a long way away. There's a glass wall in there. They don't have so much trouble hearing me, which may be a godsend. I don't know.
So the other frustration is players come to the glass to talk.
And you
So
can't-
whatever they're saying is bouncing back into the court.
Can't
And if you say, could you just step back from the glass, because we don't want them opening the door. Just step back from the glass, your voice comes over the glass, and they're like, what is he on?
So again, it's a little bit of squash etiquette that
Yeah.
could be taught
And-
through the ages, and then this.
And the players
referees-
who are looking to achieve something
Yeah.
in the sport have got to pick up on that. If they're just doing it because their parents played squash and they get the
That's
17
fine.
driving license, they don't do it anymore. That's entirely up to them. But the people who I think are going to look, to play for their country, etc., they've got to start learning these very small, detailed things to sort of shape them into better players. I think, because from that side, I don't get frustrated on court. I just think we keep the dialogue to absolute minimum. There's a lot of this going on or whatever, and the players who are up to speed know straight away. And in a noisy environment, you were sort of trying to listen to someone on this court, and there's a real ping pong rally going on. So bang, 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 and I think, well, you can hear all. At least I can hear all that, but I can't hear those players because I get a bit old as well.
Yeah.
So you think, well, it's a let ball, blah blah. No, that's it. It's a let ball from a left, please, and that's it. Because otherwise, the explanation is pretty direct. But
You don't want it to be going on. We're back to
the.
the.
I said, I'm unsure. Your opponent's appealed. It's a let ball, and they know that's what's going to happen. But they say, yeah, but so. Yes, left from the left. They draw a line under and get on with it. Right? So.
Anything to add to that, Jason? No.
I was going to go off a different tangent in as much that the frustrations and the challenges that I feel are the lack of referees we actually have in Wales. What we're wanting to do is attract more referees. How do we attract them? How do we get them involved? Because once we get them involved, how do we then retain them? And quite often, some of my frustrations come from when a very new referee becomes involved and they're exposed to a match that doesn't go particularly well, and the players don't treat them very well, or the spectators, or something said to them that puts them off completely, and we lose them forever. And I find one of our biggest challenges is how we recruit and retain referees within Wales. And I find it frustrating. I feel that I've got the tool. I'm lucky. I think we all agree we're experienced referees. We're lucky we've got the tools to deal with some of the challenging behaviour. But when it's a new referee coming it becomes involved, when they're exposed to that confrontational behaviour for the first time, if it's not dealt with the right way or doesn't go very well, then we run the risk of losing them forever. And it's a shame, because there's very few of us that are thick-skinned enough.
Thick skin and broad
Thick skin.
shoulders.
Well, I'm sure there's no easy answer, but is there suggestions for?
Well, sorry, can I just... We've just lost a referee recently this year. Quite a new referee. I like the guy. I thought he did a fair job purely because of a player having been not too abusive, but having a go and then questioning his decisions, plus the teammates. He then come over to Cardiff squash racket. Someone had a go at him in the bar there. We've lost him for good in that short period of time. Someone might say, well, obviously he wasn't thick-skinned enough and broad-shouldered.
But
that's beside the point. He was doing a job to help out Squash Wales. He's not from Wales. And we've lost someone. Jason's making an excellent point there. How do we get them in the first place? Not easy. Who wants to put up with this? And if and when we've got them, it's retaining them. And it's not just here in Wales, it's across the board.
So going on from what Chris has said there, hopefully when you watch this video, you might be interested in becoming a referee. And there is people within Squash Wales who are very experienced to help with your development. There is the World Squash Officiating or WSO website that you can go on and do or learn the basic rules. But there's a wealth of experience of referees here that are more than happy to pass on their expertise and time to help develop the referees, mentor them. That's how we look to retain them so that we can gain more referees for squash in Wales.
Oh, sounds great. Okay.
I'd say pre-COVID, if I travelled with our A team to Premier League matches or Premier B, whatever it was, you'd go to some clubs and some would be marked their game there and they do an absolutely fabulous job. You know, a non-playing team member, shall we say, and you'd sit there and I said, do you ever fancy on the tournament? I said, oh, I'll be doing that. I'm comfortable here in the leisure centre. I said, but I've seen him marking away as well. Like, you know, they might travel to my club. And if I sit and I said, do you want to mark on the games? Oh, yeah, okay. And they're good at it, but they don't want to be in the environment of those glass courts.
Yeah.
Where there's no one on their side, really. Because
it just becomes more difficult.
Yeah. And I think doing the job itself, they were great. And there was a bit of confrontation in different matches, which you will expect. And then you have to deal with it straight away. I thought, well, what a waste that is, just staying in a leisure centre, doing it, good level matches every other week. When you could
we're all comfortable in different areas, aren't we? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.